Good morning, guys. Happy coffee talk. It's Thursday morning. It's kind of cloudy here in Washington State. It's been a little minute since I gave my weather report at the beginning of coffee talk, but it's cloudy, and so it's notable because in July and August it is straight sun here, which is magical. But it's also the plants. We have to spend 30 minutes every night watering the plants or they die. It's like they know, okay, I'm a water plant, and then all of a sudden the water goes away in Washington. And it is gorgeous here. P.S. I'm saying this out loud to you guys because this is one of the best, most helpful accountability tools is to say something out loud. But I need to climb Mount Pilchuck this year. One of our FitMe community, or one of our FitMe clients just climbed Mount Pilchuck, and this was a huge milestone and win for her, and it was so amazing to see her picture at the top. Amanda, you rock if you're listening to this. I was super inspired by you, and it made me want to get my butt in gear and get up that mountain because that's one of the challenges that I want to take on this year, especially before the weather turns. And so I'm saying it out loud to you guys that I'm going to climb Mount Pilchuck this year, get my butt up that mountain. And let's talk coffee real quick and then into our coffee talk message. So my coffee is the last of my Kona coffee blend, and I was in my You Make the World a Better Place mug that has a rainbow handle. FitMe client service manager Brooke gave me this as a birthday present. You guys probably noticed a theme that almost all of my mugs were given to me as gifts. Every once in a while I buy one for myself, but then I tend to give those away to people. And so most of what I have, I got as a present. And it's the end of my Kona coffee blend. I have one more bag of coffee that I brought from Hawaii, but I didn't buy too much because I wanted it to be sometimes things can be fleeting. And that's okay. You have it and you enjoy it and you're like, wow, that was so special from that time. But if I just drink Hawaiian special coffee all year, when I would go to Hawaii, it wouldn't be very special. So it makes me think, save it, have a little bit, remember it, and then go back to it. So I want to talk, coffee talk message today. I actually shared this on my Instagram story yesterday, but it's a story that I think, many of you will benefit from, especially leading up to our FitMe event. So FitMe Weekend is in a couple of weeks, and at FitMe Weekend, it's going to be a theme of empowerment and, advocating for yourself and creating space and creating time to build the life that you want and taking good care of yourself. And one of the key pieces in my story that relate to this is my knee. And if you've been around me for a while, you know that I've had knee surgery, but I wanted to describe what actually happened so that way you can put it into perspective in your life. Many people think that I hurt my knee doing the things that I'm doing right now. So I do jiu-jitsu pretty regularly, 2 or 3 times a week. I do weightlifting 3 or 4 times a week, Olympic style weightlifting, snatch and clean and jerk. And then I do CrossFit for funsies a couple times a week, if it fits in. But I used to do CrossFit all the time, and same thing I was a much more in the gym person because I used to coach full time in a gym. So I had the lifestyle that I could be in there all the time. And now it's more fits into my real life, but I do these things. So the things that I like to do are jiu-jitsu, hiking mountains, like we just talked about, weightlifting, CrossFit, and then, whatever silly sports or whatever is coming up. So anyways, those are the things I like to do. And most people think when I talk about my knee that I hurt my knee doing those things, but that's not actually the case. I believe it or not, so this is a funny, weird story. I was a soccer player growing up. I played a lot of soccer. I was a competitive soccer player. I traveled. I played, 2 or 3 teams at a time all through the year. And I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. And the Naval Academy is a Division I sport, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to apply to college for sports or anything. So I just focused on getting into the Naval Academy. I didn't worry about the soccer piece. Well, I got into the Naval Academy, but they ran out of spots. And so they sent me which is weird. I know that sounds funny. I got in, but they still have a certain number of spots per state. And because the Naval Academy is in Maryland, and that's where I grew up, it's potentially the most competitive state to get in because there's the least number of spots for the most number of qualified people. And so when I got in, they were like, you're in. However, we don't have a spot for you. And so you're going to have to wait a year. And this was the most devastating news ever. And they're like, you're in, you just have to go to prep school for a year and wait it out. Like, get good grades, stay out of trouble. You do not have to reapply. You're in. All you have to do is just stay on the straight and narrow, and you're in next year. And they're like, you want to do that? And so I had to make the decision, do I want to delay my dream by a year, or do I want to, pick something else? And I was like, I'm going to delay by a year. I'm going to go to prep school. And they picked the prep school for me. If you had lots of money, then you could pick your own prep school, but we didn't. And so they picked for me because they were going to pay for it. So they sent me to New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell, New Mexico. And that's a story for another day. But when I got to New Mexico Military Institute, it was a junior college. So it was a JUCO, so NJCAA, which is like Division I junior college. And when I got there, I remember talking to the sports director or something, and I was like, when does your soccer team have a tryout? And they're like, we don't have a soccer team. They're like, but we have a women's volleyball team. And I was like, well, I don't know how to play volleyball. I'm 5'4", barely 5'4", and I'm a soccer player, so I've not played volleyball at all. Like, maybe for funsies at the beach with my friends. Like, that's it. And they're like, well, you should try out for the women's volleyball team. Like, you never know. And I was like, oh, okay. But the real reason they were saying that was because it was their very first year of the program. So they had like 12 full scholarship recruits who were there for, volleyball on their way to play at Division I schools. And then they were just excited about the program. So they were telling me to try out because they were excited about it. So I went and I tried out, and I was terrible, but I was a really good athlete and I have a good attitude. And so by some weird, shift in the universe, I made this collegiate volleyball team. And so that 1 year at New Mexico Military Institute, I played volleyball. I didn't get to play in games very much, as you could imagine, but I loved being on the team. I loved learning. I loved practicing hard. I was probably like the best practice dummy ever. And they would use me to like punish the girls who are super good. They'd be like, get out, Christy, you're in. At least Christy will try. And they leave me in for like 2 plays, and they'd be like, oh my God, get her out. Like put people back in. Cause I just didn't know how to play at that level. And so anyways, that 1 year in New Mexico Military Institute, then following year I went to the Naval Academy. And the almost identical thing happened. I was like, I would like to try out for the soccer team. They're like, nope, you can't. They did have a soccer team. It was a Division I soccer team, but it was, they did not take walk-ons. If you were not a recruit, you did not get to try out, which was a huge bummer because I wanted to try out. And like I said, I don't know if I would have made it, but I was a good soccer player. So it was reasonable that I might have made it. But I went to the volleyball coach and I was like, hey, do you take walk-ons? And he was like, yep. So I tried out for volleyball at the Naval Academy, and I was still not very good. I mean, I was definitely better after playing for a year in college, but it was probably pretty confusing to this coach because he was like, how in the heck did you play at college last year? You clearly do not have that kind of background. But I think I made the similar impression. I was a very good, aggressive, physical athlete. I had some skills at that point. And he called my coach from New Mexico, and she spoke on my behalf and said that I was valuable to the team or whatever, and maybe that I was a good practice dummy. And so by some, again, weird shift in the universe, I made this Division I college volleyball team. And I was terrible at volleyball. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because in that first year at the Naval Academy, playing volleyball, my knee would sometimes swell up. And I'd always had, kind of like my knee was like a thing that I thought about in soccer and everything, but I was very highly functional. But my knee would sometimes swell up, and I would go to the trainer after practice, and we'd put ice on it, and I was doing pretty fine. And I was certainly very functional, but I went to this orthopedic doctor at the Naval Academy because we actually have an ortho clinic on the school campus. And she, at that time, I did not know it, but she misdiagnosed my knee. She said that although I have an ACL, it was not functional and that it was stretched out. But what she didn't look at was how my joints bend across my entire body. So I am not necessarily like super hypermobile. but my joints bend. So I can bend my fingers backwards. All of my joints tend to hyperextend. I'm very flexible. And I think what she was seeing was just a like loose joint, which all my joints were kind of in that category. And so to make a long story short, she decided that I did not have a functional ACL. I had never torn it. I never had an incident, nothing like that. And she decided, and again, I say she decided because I was in the Navy, so I really did not own my own body. I mean, I kind of did, but not really, because if like a commander who is an orthopedic doctor saying you need this surgery, then you're going to do it. And she said that I needed an ACL reconstruction. And I didn't at the time. I just didn't know. So she did an ACL reconstruction on my knee. 9 months later, my knee was not better. And I went back and I said, there's something wrong. My knee's not working. And instead of figuring out what was wrong, she said that I was a statistical failure and that some number of people fail when they have surgery. And so then she repeated the surgery again. So 9 months later, I had a second ACL reconstruction where they used my good knee. They grafted from my good knee for my bad knee. So they essentially gave me 2 bad knees. Less than a year later, I had a debridement surgery where they like removed a bunch of scar tissue because it couldn't even bend my knee. They would have to drain it all the time. It was like really not good. And then right after I commissioned, they did a third ACL reconstruction trying to fix the same thing. And it did not work. And so I went to deployment and went to the ship and all of that. And my knee was still not right. And it wasn't until I got out of the Navy that I was actually working for a nonprofit, Operation Homefront, and I was dealing with donors, actually. And so I was dealing with a donor from the University of Florida, and he was an orthopedic surgeon. And I was telling him about my knee, and he's like, you know what, come into the office, we'll set you up an appointment, and I'll look at it. And so he looked at it and looked at my scans, and he was the very first person to tell me that I was not a statistical failure, but that the surgery had been done incorrectly the first time. So not only was it not necessary surgery, but it was done incorrectly. And then that same mistake was repeated 2 more times. So I had had all of these surgeries that basically destroyed my knee, and they didn't work, and they were not done correctly, which in the Navy you really can't do much about. So he did 2 more giant surgeries. He did this one he bone grafted my shin, pulled out all the old hardware, did something called a microfracture, to try to like put some, cushion into my knee. And then 3 months later, he did my 4th ACL reconstruction. So this is a long story to tell you that by the time I was 25, I had had 10 knee surgeries and my knee was destroyed. And at that point, I had had my first 2 kids, and growing up eating garbage, not garbage, but you know what I'm saying, like processed food junk was what I ate, Papa John's, all those kind of things that I thought like, oh, this is food. And then when I got older, I was like, oh, this is food, like Stouffer's mac and cheese. And I was just not a healthy eater. Then you take away all my sports and my physical activity, and all of a sudden, after my first 2 kids, 10 knee surgeries deep, I was 40 pounds overweight and stuck and thinking, well, now my knee's destroyed. I'm never going to be able to be fit, fun athlete again. I'm overweight. I'm going to be dieting forever because clearly my genetics or my body is set up to be, overweight. And so that was where I found myself. And so the reason I'm telling you that is because I think sometimes it looks like, oh, like, I know if you follow my Instagram story, you're like, oh my God, she's like lifting weights and she's doing jujitsu, and like, I could never do that because of insert, But all of that, all of those surgeries, all of that extra weight, all of that was before this season. I was stuck before this season. I had all of those knee surgeries before this season. So when I have like a knee tweak now, it's because of that. It's because of all of those surgeries, and the knee tweak is almost just like me doing my life, and sometimes my knee gets tweaked. And so yesterday I shared this story on my Instagram, and I go over there and look about what a doctor told me 5 years ago when I had tweaked my knee at CrossFit. So go look on my Instagram story and check it out. But I'm going to pause it here and then continue this tomorrow. But what I want you to know is that the things in your mind that you think are the things that are stopping you from living the life you want are only stopping you because you're deciding that they can. I'm not saying that I can go to the Olympics or play Division I soccer with my knee. I can't. Plus, I'm 38. Obviously nobody's taking me to college anymore. But what I am saying is that there were so many things in my life that I can do that I didn't think I could do. That if I could go back to that season, 27 years old, 28 years old, when I had my kids and I was feeling so unhappy and stuck in my skin, like that I liked myself as a mom, as a professional, as a woman, but I didn't like myself in my body. And I felt like there was so many things outside of my control. That feeling, if you're feeling that feeling, I just want you to know that that was on the backside of a completely different chapter, where now I am living like a healthy, active lifestyle at a healthy body weight. I feel good. Take on adventures. Do I still have knee problems? Yes. But it did not stop me. But I didn't know that at the time, and I wish somebody would have told me. And so I'm telling you this right now, that the things that you're thinking to yourself, well, that chapter can't be for me, that's just not true. It's just going to look very specific to you. And this is true for me every time I go to jiu-jitsu, because there are moves that they teach that I'm like, my knee doesn't bend like that. I can't do it. And then I think to myself, okay, like, what is it going to look like for me? It's not like I can't go to class that day. It's like not that I can't try it and learn the principle. It's like, what is that going to look like for me? And that's what you have to think for you. What is it going to look like for you to do the thing? What is it going to look like for you to create a new chapter in your life where you feel healthy and strong and fit and good? And all of the things that you're thinking of, the reasons why you can't, are just the reasons why you're stuck right now. They may be a bad hand. I got a bad hand for my knee. There's worse hands, but I got, not ideal to have a bunch of surgeries you don't need. But that's done. I can't do anything about that. All I can do is what I have now. And so I want to challenge you today, and I'm going to continue this story tomorrow, to think about the stories that you're telling yourself, the circumstances in your life that feel like, oh, these are impossible barriers that I can't work past. And ask yourself, is that true? And what if you push beyond it and figure out how it'll work for you? What if you decided to try anyway and just imagine and see what you're capable of? What if you could do and experience so much more than you think and you can? And so that's my coffee talk message for you this morning. Tomorrow, we're going to continue this story because I want to talk more about this particular knee situation and how it applies to you. But I wanted to give you the background. And if you have something going on in your life, shoot me a message. I want to hear from you. I would love to know that, this episode hit. If you've got something going on similarly, I want to know how I can help. And so shoot me a message on Instagram or an email, Christy@fitmenutrition.com. And I would love to connect with you. So thanks as always for plugging into Coffee Talk. It means so much to me that you listen. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to FitMe Coffee Talk on your favorite podcast platform. Share this with a friend if you think it would be helpful. And last but not least, if you're not in our Facebook group, then come on over to FitMe Community. It is the one place that you want to be on Facebook. So go to Facebook, click search, and put in Fit Me Community. Let us know in the questions that you found it via the podcast. There'll be an option you can pick that. So look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye.